Hi there, and welcome to the Mindful Marathon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk, a run coach and pediatrician. Mindful Marathon is all about helping runners of all types to run their own race. Whether you are a seasoned runner or you're just getting started, I want to let you know that you're welcome here and that you're in the right place. Hi, my friend. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're having a great week so far. And I have a very fun episode today. So I'm really excited that you're here and joining me for it. This episode was inspired by commonly asked questions. So, one of my favorite parts of run coaching is part of it is writing training plans and helping athletes and being at races. But I really love answering questions and I love getting to know people through answering those questions. So, a lot of times I get questions coming up, obviously, on new athlete consult calls or on coaching calls with my current athletes. And this weekend, I had an in person workshop at one of our local running stores with my friend Dr. Katie Vieira, who is a physical therapist, and May Tran, who is a registered dietitian. And the gist of the workshop, I had people sign up for one on one consults for short periods of time, like 20-minute blocks of time. And so it was really a great way to hone in on one or two questions that each athlete had. And as I was sitting there today, I thought this is really funny because in a 3 hour period, I had some of the same questions come up over and over again. So I thought today, let me kick off something new. I've not done this before. I'm going to call it Ask a Run Coach, and I'm going to answer 5 of the questions I hear most often. And so, if you've ever wondered any of these yourself, you're not alone. And I'm hoping that we can make this a recurring series. So, think about your questions, and I will let you know how you can get in touch with me at the end so you can ask me them, and maybe they can be featured on a future episode. So, here we go. Okay, 5 of my most commonly asked questions as a run coach. Let us dive in. Question number 1. What running shoes, what running sneakers should I buy? I get this one a lot. And I would say, even from family members, right? Like people find out I'm a run coach, and usually the first question is always about sneakers. Okay, everyone really wants me to tell them exactly which brand of running shoe they should buy, which type of running shoe they should buy. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know. Okay. Running shoes are incredibly individual. And what I mean by that is, I'm just going to give my own example here. So I used to wear a neutral running shoe for many years. And about 5 years ago, maybe more than that now, 6 years ago, I had an ankle sprain from gardening. It was gardening, twisted my ankle. It's a long story. Anyway, I discovered that I have an extra foot bone, which is cool. But in the rehab from that, I realized that I needed a stiffer, more supportive running shoe. And so my physical therapist and someone at my wonderful local running store, the Philly Runner, suggested a stability shoe. And so I have been wearing a stability shoe since then. Now, not everybody needs a stability shoe. So each brand, there are all of these different brands of running sneakers. Within the brand, there are different types of shoes, right? So each brand tends to have a stability version, a neutral version, high drop, low drop, right? So there are so many choices, and it can be really overwhelming, especially if you go on the internet and say, which running shoe should I buy? The point of this story is to say that all of us have different histories with our running, with our feet and ankles. Our running mechanics are different. Our injury histories are different. And so, the best thing you can do for yourself is to go to your friendly local running store and get fitted for a shoe. And if you're currently in physical therapy or if you've had injuries before, maybe talking to your doctor or physical therapist about what type of shoe might be helpful before you go to the running store so you can take all of that information with you. And then I just want to say one other little, like an asterisk on this question, which is if you're a beginner and you have not ever gone into a running store or you have some fears about going to the running store because you're a newer runner, I just want to put that to rest and say that I was that person many years ago. And I thought, who am I to be going in this running store and asking to be fitted for sneakers? I'm not really a runner and I haven't run any races. I don't know what kind of shoe I need. And I chuckle now because I think knowing what I know now and knowing the wonderful people who work at the Philly Runner, another shout out to them, they want to help us to continue to run and to continue to go into their store and get fitted for sneakers and run for many years, right? That's what they want. So, no one is going to judge you in any way if you are a newer runner, if you're primarily a walker, if you use run walk intervals. Like all of these things are important to tell them so you can get the right shoe. But I don't want you to be afraid to go in the running store and find the shoe that feels comfortable for you. Okay, so that's question number one. Maybe the answer surprised you. Question number two. Oh, I like this. Question number two. Usually there's a preface to this question, which is, Coach Michelle, I've done a 5K or two. I really would like to run a half marathon. Can I really train for a half marathon? And my short answer to that is absolutely yes. So I know I've told my story a few times on here, and I will share my story and a story of one of my athletes. I think it's important to remember that to run a half marathon, you need not be fast. You need not have years and years of running experience. I think most healthy adults can train for a half marathon with a gradual and reasonable plan. And the thing that's really key, and I say it all the time, is consistency. That's what gets you to that start line and that finish line. I didn't wake up as a half marathoner. I didn't wake up as a runner either. I started with 5 minutes around the block running about 3 times a week, and that was in 2012. I ran my first 5K in 2013 and my first half marathon in 2016. So that was a long lead up, I would say, like 3 years of running before I decided to tackle that distance. Now, I'm not saying you need 3 years to do it, but it's also not an overnight thing. So you want to make sure you're prepared for it. But I also will give you the example of one of my athletes, Smriti and her son Arjun. They ran their first half marathon in 2024. And I had worked with Smriti previously. She took my beginner runner program called Ready, Set, Run several years prior to running that half marathon. So, knowing that you want to run a half marathon and having that on your radar, and knowing that there's the belief that I have in you that you can do it, I would say to give yourself plenty of time to get to that goal, especially if you are a newer runner and you haven't tackled longer distances yet. When we think about a training cycle for a half marathon, if we are a regular runner already and you've been relatively consistent for about 2 months, maybe 3 months, you are in a great place to begin a training cycle for a half marathon. A half marathon training cycle is usually about 12 weeks long. So let's say you have a goal of a half marathon, whatever date that is in the future, count back about 3 months, and that is when you should start your dedicated training for that race distance. Now, if you are coming from the couch, you want to give yourself ample time to get up to that consistent running a few times a week before you increase your mileage and your time on your feet to get to the half marathon. Now, if this was your question, if you are wondering if you can take on this half marathon distance, I have a freebie for you that you can download from the show notes. So it is about a half-hour workshop that I did all about the half marathon distance and preparing for it, and it's called Half Marathon Success. So head on over to the show notes, you can download it and watch that, and I'll remind you about that at the end. Okay, let's move on to my third question for this episode of commonly asked questions of the Run Coach. So, question three, how fast should I run? Ooh, okay. So this is a tough one in that there are a lot of ways I could take the answer. So if you've listened to the podcast before, you probably know what's coming, okay? I think the most common mistake that both newer runners and more experienced runners make is that we are running too hard on our easy days. Your easy runs should feel easy. And if you're just starting out, I would recommend that all of your runs attempt to feel that way. So we have talked about level of effort scale before. We have talked about conversation pace before. But really and truly, the slower running is what helps you build up endurance over time. And that is what is going to help you at all distances. It doesn't matter from the 1 mile to the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, the full marathon. That is where it starts with easy running. So, just to review, we have the level of effort scale 1 to 10. 1 is a brisk walk, 10 is a bear chasing you in the woods. And we want our easy paced runs to be in the 2 to 3 out of 10 range, which means if you and I were jogging with each other, we could carry on some sort of a conversation. Some runners and coaches use, instead of saying level of effort scale, they say your rate of perceived exertion. We're talking about the same thing here. So when I think about the question, how fast should I run? The answer is it depends. I think if you are just starting out, easy is the name of the game. You want to build up your consistency, your endurance, your stamina. And so conversation pace running is where it's at. Now, if you are trying to get faster, if you want to do speed workouts, if you have pace goals and time goals, that is where we start talking about, okay, what paces should I be running on this particular run on this particular day? And that is where a coach can be super duper helpful. So if you are a newer runner, the answer to how fast should I run would be keep it to level of effort of 2 to 3 out of 10. And that's a great place to start from. When you are becoming more advanced, then I think it's time to ask some deeper questions and maybe get in touch at that point, and I can help you with pacing. So, the other thing to mention here, how fast should I run? That also depends on things like heat and humidity, which we have right now in the middle of a long, hot summer. It depends on other things in your life. So if you had a bad night of sleep, if you had a rough work week and you are trying to do your long run this weekend, right? How fast you should be running might be different than if you had a stress-free week, you got great sleep, and you wake up at 5 a.m. ready to roll and there's no heat and humidity, right? So the answer here is it depends. And I want to give everybody permission to adjust your pace, especially your easy pace, right? I talk a lot about finding your easy pace, and this is another great example of a place where we can do that. Okay, so that was how fast should I run? It depends. Question number 4. Coach Michelle, do I need to run every day? Okay, I think the short answer to that is no. No, you don't. In fact, I would not recommend running daily. Again, if you have listened to the podcast before, you know I talk an awful lot about rest days. They're extremely important to your training. And also, I have a lot of athletes who love things besides running. They love movement that is not running. Some people love walking or strength training, or swimming, or cycling, or tennis, right? We have lots of other things that we may enjoy doing. Running can be one of those things. Do you need to run every day? No, you definitely do not. So the equation that we love is stress plus rest equals adaptation. So you need that rest piece in order to get where we're going. We need to make time for that recovery because adaptation happens during those recovery periods. So should we be running every day? Probably not. And I think running is just one part of the bigger picture here, right? So running is just one part of becoming a stronger runner. Recovery is that other piece. So do we need to run every day? No, we don't. And then my last question for this episode, question number 5. Coach Michelle, is it okay to walk? So I love ending with this one because it really reinforces a lot of what I have said in the last, I don't know, 90 plus episodes here. I know I talk a lot about using run walk intervals. And again, a shout out to Jeff Galloway, who would have celebrated his 81st birthday this weekend. So Jeff really popularized the run, walk, run method, and he made running accessible to so many people and brought so many people to the sport. And I love sharing his method and using run walk intervals because so many people across the world use this method. So is it okay to walk? Absolutely, it's okay to walk. In fact, I have a lot of people who are brisk walkers. They are avid walkers. They walk almost every day of the week. And they often ask me if they can transition from that walking regimen to running. And so that's maybe a bonus question here. And so the answer to them is yes. If you are a regular walker and you want to try running, of course you can. And this is the entry point, is using run walk intervals. So you break up the distance and you jog for a set period of time, and then you walk, and then you run, and then you walk. So you can set an interval timer, like a free app that you can download on your phone or to your watch, so that it will vibrate or ding when the interval changes. So you don't have to keep looking down at your watch or looking at your phone while you're out there on a run. And you can set that interval as you wish and titrate up the running interval as you get more consistent and gain more stamina and endurance. And to go back to an earlier point, again, when you start using run walk intervals, the goal there is still that level of effort of 2 to 3 out of 10. So people ask, what interval should I start with, or how fast should I go when I do these run intervals? And the answer is really try it to your level of effort first. Really tap into how the run is feeling for you. You don't want to be sprinting during that 30-second or 60-second run interval. Okay, you want to be running nice and easy. And so run walk intervals can really help break those longer distances up. It can reduce injury risk. It can help us to stay consistent. So walking does not make you any less of a runner, okay? We're all moving forward. We're all trying to get to that start line and that finish line. And so walking is one tool in your toolbox. So, those are the 5 questions that I hear most often as a run coach. If you enjoyed this format, I'd love to make Ask a Run Coach like a regular series here on the podcast. So, if you have a question that you've always wanted to ask, just send me a DM on Instagram at mindful.marathon or send me an email, and I would love to feature it in a future episode. And then just 2 free resources to mention. I already mentioned the Half Marathon Success Workshop. That is a free workshop you can download if you are thinking about an upcoming half marathon, or maybe even in the distant future. You've thought maybe you want to do it, but you are not sure about tackling 13.1 miles. So head over to the show notes, download the workshop, and it's packed with a lot of practical tips to help you train and get to race day successfully. And then if you are a newer runner or a beginner runner, or you have taken time off from running and you're just getting back into it, I have another free workshop called Start Running and Make It Stick, where I walk you through how to build a sustainable running habit without getting overwhelmed and without quitting in the process. So head over to the show notes and you'll find those links to both free workshops over there. That is all I have for you today. We have some fun episodes coming up, so stay tuned for that. I hope everyone is having a great summer, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast so that we can reach and encourage others to tie on their sneakers and join us out there on a run. See you next time.